Fáilte go féile na Bealtaine. I'm Owen Gill and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Bealtaine Festival celebrating our living earth. Bealtaine is the Irish word for the month of May, and for our ancient ancestors it was a time of great celebration, celebrating the arrival of spring and summer, nature waking from its slumbers over the winter and beginning to deliver its bounty again. So it's very important. Our ancestors, of course, were very much in touch with the cycles of nature, and we think that it's a really appropriate time to get out and about, celebrate our living heritage, and also to explore the wonderful natural heritage of the southeast region.
The Bealtaine Living Earth Biodiversity Festival is a 10-day festival exploring biodiversity and the natural heritage of the southeast region. The festival, coordinated by CalMast, Waterford Institute of Technology's STEM Outreach Centre, brings together many groups across the region who are interested in environmental awareness, environmental promotion, biodiversity, and celebrating our natural heritage. The festival started 10 years ago and initially just had events for school groups during the day. However, it quickly grew to now having nearly 40 events, with events taking place at weekends and the evenings for the public and families, events taking place during the day for school groups, and also some events for the public as well. There are a wide variety of different events taking place in different venues as well. We have events on the seashore, in woodlands, in laboratories, in art galleries, anywhere where biodiversity and natural heritage are in action. The aim of the festival is to encourage people to appreciate and explore our natural heritage. We bring people out to woodlands, to seashores, and with a guide we aim to explore the heritage and show them what's out and about in their local environment. We typically have about 2,000 people at events. It's a wonderful festival exploring the natural heritage and diversity of the southeast. The festival is coordinated by CalMast, STEM Outreach Centre at Waterford Institute of Technology, and brings together many groups who are interested in promoting environmental awareness and care and biodiversity, and who are interested in the natural environment. The groups include Waterford Council, Lismore Heritage Centre, Oceanics Marine Education Centre, the Native Woodland Trust, and many experts from within the region and who are coming to the region to give their time. We're delighted this year to welcome two new partners, Curramore Estate and Mancongreve.
I'm Carol Farrell. I'm a project manager in the Education and Public Engagement team with Science Foundation Ireland. Bealtaine is fantastic because it's based in the southeast and it's about showing science in the everyday, so people can come out and they can see where science lies in the ecosystem, what's happening on the seaside, all different aspects of science in their daily lives. And it's not just what's happening in a lab, it's really accessible, it's something they can see and feel and touch and hear.
Ciara Kavanagh, the principal in St Saviour's Primary School here in Ballybeg in Waterford.
We love to see the Bealtaine Forum come in every year and the different activities that are on offer in the college for the children. So we've taken part, I think, since it began. We try to send a couple of classes each year, if at all possible, over to the festival, and we just love the emphasis that it puts on science in all of its forms.
I'm Marie Power. I'm a seaweed forager and food producer of foods based on seaweed. Seaweed foraging is literally picking seaweeds that are edible for use in your everyday cooking. And we're very fortunate on the Waterford coast to have a lot of rocky beaches. You need rocks for seaweed to grow on. You'll find seaweed washed up on sandy beaches and on all beaches, but that seaweed is dead, but the fresh seaweed for foraging is still attached to the rocks. So when we go on a forage, we show people the 12 or 15 edible species that are growing along the shore. Varies from beach to beach, different species. And we tell people then about how to use them in cooking, how to store them, and give people a chance to taste them. Yeah, seaweed is, it's been recognised for generations as a healthy food. Dillis would have been eaten for as long as anybody can remember, and it's got very high levels of protein, iron, vitamin B12, zinc, and so on. Seaweeds generally are high in iron, they are high in protein, and they're high in iodine. Some of them, like the kelps, would be extremely high in iodine, but they also have a full complement of other trace elements like calcium, magnesium, potassium, potash, and manganese, etc. Bealtaine has been a great festival. I've been involved in it since its inception a number of years ago, and I think what Bealtaine does is that it makes it easy for people to access nature, and it by presenting such a full program of events with a lot of variety in them, I think it allows people to book in for whatever appeals to them most. And the emphasis is on accessibility. The events are all free, which means that anybody and everybody can come, and Bealtaine gives it a broader appeal.
I studied zoology in college, and then I went on and did a master's in wildlife conservation and management, and then when I finished up I had a couple of short internships and jobs, and then got involved with the Native Woodland Trust and started as reserves and education officer for them. So I've been working there for 2 years. So it's sustainable biodiversity. There's so many different things you can do with ourselves at the Native Woodland Trust. Obviously, it's with planting trees mostly, and with protecting our woodlands. So woodlands and trees play a massive role in the environment, and different things to do with climate change, everything, providing habitat for wildlife. So one of the areas that people can really help on, that Ireland can help in general, is planting more trees. Same with wildflowers and that kind of stuff, and for pollinators it's really important. So we also keep areas on our woodland reserves where we keep them free, and we keep them there for free of trees and for wildflowers, so that there's butterflies and bees and that kind of stuff, food for them. So that's another way people can plant trees and flowers in their own back gardens, and that makes a massive difference.
My name's Mary O'Neill. I'm a horticulturalist by profession. I trained in the Botanic Gardens. We have a lot of commemorative trees that were planted by the Kennedy family over the years. More recently, the anniversary of the death of JFK, his 50th anniversary, an oak tree was planted on site by Caroline Kennedy. We have the Wollomai nobilis, which is found in the Wollomai National Park by a park ranger called David Noble, and it was only known from fossil records. So it's fascinating to think that the dinosaurs walked the earth when that plant was growing, and we have it growing here now in the Arboretum. Well, I understand biodiversity. Bio meaning life, diverse meaning varied, many. So biodiversity would be all forms of life on Earth, ranging from the smallest little millipede or centipede that you find to the largest giraffe to the largest tree. So it's every form of life. The way I think about biodiversity, like, we're only custodians of this landscape, and we have to be mindful of it. Going back to, as I say, the smallest insect to the largest tree, everything has to be minded, because our landscape, we have to remember, how would we live if we only looked at concrete? If our landscape if we weren't looking out at the beauty that we see around us. That's what biodiversity gives us. To sustain biodiversity, it's investing in our children. The children are our future. We invest in education for our children. They are the ones who will be looking after our landscape for the future. So investing in children and education. We look at our landscape, we look at the trees we have. If we keep planting and keep the right tree, the right place, be careful of what we plant.
I'm Glyn Anderson. Talks like tonight, it's about people coming out and learning about the environment, learning about our natural world, birds, and how we interact with them. It's become increasingly important. We know how important the environment is, we know how important things like climate change are, so I think anything that gets people more interested in environmental issues and more knowledge about our flora and fauna is a good thing. Climate change, I think it's about lobbying your governments and our governments around the world to try and, it's such a huge problem that we have to get our governments to act on it. And people need to inform themselves about what's going on. What can people do? Inform yourself, read about climate change, the realities of it, and what we need to be doing on a big scale to save ourselves, save the planet, I suppose,
There's actually an awful lot more wildlife around than you might think, or you might realise. And I suppose the thing that you might realise about mammals is that the one kind of unfortunate thing about them is that you don't get to see them very often. They're quite easy to see, so they're kind of one of the things that gets people into wildlife quite early on, because they're quite easy to spot. Whereas mammals take a little bit more work and a small bit more knowledge to kind of get to find signs of, or to kind of to figure out where it is they're living. But once you actually kind of start to, you kind of know what you're looking for, they're actually quite easy to find signs of, a lot of them. And then, let's say if you've never seen a red squirrel or not, or if you know where to look and the kind of signs that you're looking for, you'll actually stand a fairly good chance of seeing something. Okay? And put something down that would leave marks of their footprints. You could actually record hedgehogs living in an area, because they'll just walk straight through the tunnel, get the bait, and what we have here are a couple of old rags with a bit of poster paint on them that they'll leave a bit of paint on their paws, and when they're walking back out, they'll walk over the paper and leave the marks of their paw prints. And it's such a simple idea, but it works so well, okay? So you can see the setup, it's dead easy, like anybody can actually do it. Like, you just have to sellotape a bit of paper on at the edges, your paint pads, and then a bit of bait, like cat food even, or peanut butter in the middle, and they absolutely love it. And the great thing, you can actually be a little bit arty, like when you could use red paint if you want, or pink paint, or whatever colour you want, right? But this is just to show you the kind of thing you get. It can be kind of a bit messy looking sometimes when you can look up online like hedgehog footprints. You can see the bigger footprint, those footprints. Now you might think that bats look massive when they're flying around, right? But these are adult bats, okay? And they're tiny. They're about the size of your thumb. If you have a €2 coin, they weigh less than that. They weigh about 5 grams, so they're absolutely tiny. But one of these can pack away 3,000 insects in a single night, right? So 3,000 midges. So they're actually really, really beneficial for humans, even though we don't really appreciate it or know it. They're really beneficial to us because they eat literally tons of insects. If you imagine there's a roost of 100 of them, they could be eating millions of insects.
This workshop introduces primary school children to the science of colour in a hands-on interactive workshop. The focus is on colour in nature. Initially we look at some physics and we look at the spectrum of light and the work of Isaac Newton. Following on from that, we start to look at a little bit of chemistry and we look at the use of chemical indicators. Robert Boyle, who was born in Lismore Castle, County Waterford, was the first person to see the use of indicators and to see how we can distinguish materials based on how they interact with a chemical indicator. The indicator he used was syrup of violet. In this activity, we use a simpler red cabbage indicator. We then look at some paper chromatography and we get the children to investigate the separation of colours in inks. We tell them where this is used in chemical analysis and leading on to forensic science. Finally, we look at colour in nature and the importance of colour for animals and plants in camouflage, in seed dispersal and for mating. The kids really love it. They really love to get interactive and to see science in action.
I'm Tina Keating. I work as a jeweller, gemologist and geologist. When I started my goldsmith apprenticeship, I knew there was, the basic gems, I suppose the most well-known ones, the rubies, the sapphires. And it was only as I was going through my 5 years apprenticeship that I started to hear about these other gemstones, ones that you would never have heard of, with these beautiful names like malachite, tourmaline. And I just got fascinated with those. And I know everybody loves the ruby, the sapphire, but these stones are absolutely beautiful in their own right. So I wanted to learn more. So when I finished my apprenticeship, I went and studied gemology in Regent's College with the Gemological Association of Great Britain, and I got my fellowship there. So I've been a gemologist for over 20 years. If I could choose one gem above all else, I think I would choose tourmaline. Okay, because it's fascinating, it's beautiful. It comes in all colours. You get beautiful pinks, greens, and the pink is nicer than any ruby. And the green is a beautiful green, nicer than an emerald green. It's a lovely stone to study because of the optics. It has unusual optics. So you have beautiful coloration along the optic axis, and then it can be very, very faint across it. So it's very interesting as well as being a very beautiful gem.
Paul Carroll, Scientific Officer with Waterford Council. Biodiversity to me is the range of animals and plants living around us, and knowing that each of them have a role in the ecosystem, and that sometimes unknown to us, each of them are important to our quality of life as well. We showed them how wastewater from houses is treated and the importance of treating that properly so that the receiving environment doesn't suffer, such as the fish and the creatures that live in the stream that the fish depend on for food. And as part of the demonstration, we gave each group samples of life from the bottoms of the river and let them identify and have a look and see how each animal lived in the water. And we also explained how the shape of the animals shows that they've adapted to the way of life in the water. Festivals like Bealtaine are very important in that they bring to a wide audience, especially the young people in schools and both primary and secondary, they bring knowledge of biodiversity to them.
This is a snake. His name is Tony. Do you see Tony's got heat pits? There are those little holes around his nose. They're his heat sensors. Only some snakes have that, like some pythons, boas and pit vipers. And look at this. Look, this is really cool as well. Look at Tony's eye. I can rub his eyeball. No, do you know why I can do that? Because what? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a scale over his eye. He'll probably grow about 4, maybe 4 or 5.
His scales are like they're going to fall off.
Do you want to let him down really gently, girls?
Hello, my name is Dave from Dave's Jungle. I do reptile show, an educational show. I have variation of different types of reptiles. I have everything from crocodiles to monitor lizards. I also have iguanas, bearded dragons, chameleons. And we also cover tarantulas, scorpions, millipedes, and lots of different creatures. But also today we brought along a young alligator who's going to grow quite big, and I'm trying to get her used to the crowd and to mixing with people because she's going to grow to about 8 feet, 9 feet, and she's one of the few animals I have that can actually eat a person.
Now this is Spike. He's an alligator snapping turtle. He comes from America, the Mississippi River, and this is what happens. So here's the fish swimming along. Next thing, the fish goes to grab the worm, and then
He did that.
oh.
Okay. She won't let go of us.
So what I try to do is try to get the kids familiar with the animals and get them over little fears that they might have, and to know that there are more things to these animals than just being a big vicious crocodile that bites or a lizard that might whip you with its tail. So they get to touch and hold the animals. There's more than one dimension to them. There are animals that have a social life, that communicate with each other, and that react differently to different situations. It kind of all started out, I used to work with large animals, and I used to work with the veterinary practice as well, and I sold large animal veterinary medicine, and I just gradually got into reptiles, and eventually I was just asked to do school visits and that kind of thing, and I just got more and more into the reptiles, and I've been at it for the last 12 years full time.
For the mosaic, the idea was to make people aware of the biodiversity on the beach, the natural rock materials, all the things that are natural to the beach. So I decided to make a mosaic using all those materials. And as a geologist, when you look along the coastline, I'm fascinated by the rocks and the various rock types. A lot of people don't even see that there are different colours in the rocks. So by creating a mosaic and using the different rock types, we separate out all the different types of rock, and it's a lovely way to introduce rocks and rock types to children because you make them aware that all rocks are not the same. They've all come from different places. We can tell the story of Waterford by the rocks along the beach because we have the volcanics, we have mudstones from when Waterford was located at the South Pole, and we have the desert rocks and conglomerates from when it was closer to the equator. So we can build a lovely story about Waterford with the actual materials that we're using, as well as creating a lovely picture on the beach using all the natural materials. It makes them aware of what materials belong on the beach and what shouldn't be found there at all.
My name is Glenn Power, and I do the environmental education programs here at Oceanics Surf School and Marine Education Centre. The squid dissection class, well, that has, I would like to throw out big thanks to the Marine Institute actually, because they provided us with the squid. They came frozen in a box. We got strange looks from the postman at that one, but what we were able to do then is thaw them out, and they're such a weird animal that they're actually a great tool to show kids because they're used to vertebrates, they're used to seeing fish, they're used to seeing crabs. You know, they're used to seeing kind of the more typical of the seashore creatures, but they're not fully aware of what's going on in the deep sea. So further out in the bay, further out into the Atlantic, they're unfamiliar with it. They know it's an ocean, they know that it contains life, but when we bring in these weird animals like squid, they have a totally new outlook on it. So that gives them better appreciation and at least a wider knowledge of that just biodiversity. They think that the pen, which is what it's called, it's a ridge that goes through the length of the body, which gives it support, gives the animal support. Has no other function, but it's made of chitin, and at least one report that I read, this has evolved from a mollusk, and just through its evolution, that it has now just this residual chitin strip left over from it, and yeah, it just evolved into what it is today now. Biodiversity to me means just that. It's biological diversity. It's all the different walks of life, from protozoa right up to oak trees. And here in Tremor, for example, we have the richest biodiversity because we have so many different habitats. Right? So we have salt marshes, we have the sand hills, we also have the beach, of course, but also rock pools as well. You know, even when I do rock pool explorations with school groups and for different kids that come down, and if you're able to light that fire, if you're able to get that spark going, you know, I think I've done my job. And really, that's why I work here. You know, I really want to stress how important it is, how important science is. And you know, I tell them that, you know, you have to be good at maths, you have to do your homework, you have to, you know, pay attention. But it's also a fun way to learn. I think that the best way to learn, especially at that age, is hands-on. You know, they have to be able to pick up a crab, and you know, it's not enough to just show them a picture in a book. I think that if they're actually out there, they're getting fresh air, they're getting their exercise, they're burning calories, they don't even know it. And you know, they come back and they're completely exhausted, and they go away with something new.
My name is Eric Dempsey. I'm a professional bird watcher, for the want of a better description. My company is birdsireland.com, and the work that I do is basically trying to inspire people of all generations into taking an interest in the environment, but particularly in Ireland's birds. The importance of a festival like Bealtaine is, it cannot be even, it's hard to even describe, because it's an ancient thing. The idea that, you know, May was a time when the land started living. And the truth is that so many people, southeast, northeast, everywhere across Ireland, you know, we've sort of lost that tradition in many ways. We are so engrossed in computers, in the daily struggles of life. So Bealtaine brings the old traditions of the living earth back to the people of the southeast, and it's, to me, a vital thing to do to get that link back to the ordinary people. Well, for me, introducing kids to the wonders of nature, of birds, of flowers, of insects, the whole environment, is indescribable. You know, these kids have young minds. We can influence them for the future. And unfortunately, so many kids are spending their time playing computers and computer games and sit in front of TV screens. You know, when I was growing up as a kid, you know, we left home from dawn to dusk, and you'd be skull-hauled in, you know, at tea time, and you'd be back out again. You discovered, you got dirty, you felt the ground, you saw the leaves, you saw the birds. Many kids don't have that anymore. I think one of the best examples I can give, I was in a school, and we were talking about birdsong and the importance of birdsong. And the teacher said, okay, what we'll do is we'll Google the song of a blackbird. And a little kid put up his hand and said, teacher, why don't we just go outside and listen? And I asked this kid, well, what's the difference? You'll hear the song if you go outside or on Google, on the computer. He said, we might hear it on the computer, but we won't feel it. And that kid and that answer sums up everything that I want to try and achieve when I'm talking to the kids here in Waterford and around the southeast, is to try and get them to actually go outside and feel nature, not just learn about it, but actually experience it. And I think once you experience it, and once you get that sort of love for it, with that comes a responsibility. And You know, I always say I'm from Finglas in North Dublin. It was a rough area growing up. 8 of Ireland's top bird experts went to the same school as I did. 3 of Ireland's leading botanists. Because we had the same teacher in infants and senior infants. So when people ask me, why do I bother wasting my time talking to kids? You know, I should be talking to politicians and, you know, people in control. Well, kids are the future. And it's vital that we give something to them. Biodiversity is a complex word to describe, especially to young people. Biodiversity is everything. It's all things that are depending on each other. And when I'm talking to kids, I refer to biodiversity as being like a jigsaw. Jigsaw is made of all little pieces. And when they're all put together, you have a full picture. But what's happening at the moment is that the full picture is broken up because we've lost little pieces of that jigsaw. So biodiversity is the jigsaw of life, as it were. All of the pieces fitting together so that we have a full picture. And the complete picture in which we live is not there when we are losing parts of our biodiversity. I also refer to it as a wall, a stone wall. Stone wall stands for, you know, centuries. You start removing small little stones and it still stands. But we don't know which stone we're going to remove that will have 20 other stones balancing on that, which in turn have 20 more and which in turn have 20 more. And that's what we're doing at the moment in the world of biodiversity. We're taking little stones out of that wall of life and we don't know which little stone we're going to remove that will bring the whole wall down. It's to get across that everything has a purpose and that we need to protect everything so that the complete picture is there. That is how I describe biodiversity to kids.
There are a tiny number of people who are extremely knowledgeable about nature and wildlife and biodiversity in the country. And then there's probably about 90% of the population who have limited or very little knowledge. It's all but disappeared from school curriculums and people are not spending time outdoors. I read something recently where people spend an average of 1 hour out of the 24 outdoors. And for me, certainly, and I'm not the oldest person on the planet, but like growing up, we spent probably most of our time outdoors. And even by osmosis, you pick up on things like different plants. You see, you know, you're used to listening to birds and recognizing what's what. But I think now a lot of people nearly need to be taught that because they're not naturally in an outdoor environment and absorbing the information from it. Even little things like signs of the weather, recognizing like when the wind has changed direction or knowing where the sun is going to rise and set. Very simple, earthy kind of pieces of knowledge that my generation would take for granted seem to have diminished, I suppose, for other people. So I think Bealtaine, there's a festival, there's knowledge, there's information, but it's all a very enjoyable, accessible environment to do it in.